Yes, you heard that right. Joe Biden just finished a speech that was ruled by the media to be his big boy press conference. How did it go? Well, see for yourself.
I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Yeah, I have no words.
Facts over tracks, isn't that spitting slow, spitting fast? I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
Without further ado, let's just dig into everything that he said in this big boy press conference. Starting off at the top, we have him beginning this press conference stumbling and mumbling. Joe Biden struggled during his administration. This is a Daily Wire article before I forget. During what the administration dubbed as his big boy press conference on Thursday afternoon, as he sought to calm his party following his disastrous debate performance against former President Trump. Biden, who showed up an hour late to the event, used the White House event to campaign against Trump and made numerous false claims about his own record and about Trump during his opening remarks before moving to call on reporters. After facing accusations that his administration has carefully staged every public event that he has ever been to for the last 2 years in an effort to hide his cognitive decline, he opened the question and answer session by declaring that he had a list of pre-screened reporters that he was going to call on.
With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list of people to call on here. Reuters, Jeff Mason.
He's sitting here and he's like, oh, Reuters, I have a list of people that I already have approved to call on. He mixed up Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin during a NATO event just a few hours earlier.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
As Biden made this mistake, it's visibly obvious that members of his own cabinet were uncomfortable by the mistake. Of course, I would be too. Here's Secretaries Blinken, Austin, and National Secretary Advisor Jake Sullivan when President Trump said Vice President Trump.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
Yeah, so they're all worried. Blinken is like, oh, I have so many questions to answer after this guy. You just put me in a really bad spot. Like, they're all nervous. We have Austin over here. Like, these people already know what they're dealing with. It's very, very bad. And then we go into the next situation area, and we see Biden freaks out at a reporter for asking him about referencing to Zelensky as President Putin.
I wanted to ask you about your, you mixed up Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today. And you now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that. Officials here are saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing by leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, Putin. I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I added 5 other names. Look, guys, the idea anybody suggests that we haven't had an incredibly successful conference.
Okay, that's still not an excuse. You still rambled through. You still misspoke. You still called on the wrong person. You called Zelensky President Putin. It does not matter if, oh, wait, a couple seconds later when I got off the stage, I went back on the stage and I corrected the record. It doesn't matter if you're trying to quote unquote correct the record. It's still the same situation as you fumbled through and you made the mistake of calling President Zelensky President Putin. It just doesn't make any sense here. And this isn't, if this was the only time that he's ever had a gaffe, it's one thing. If he is actively trying to bring down another politician, it's fine, whatever. We can see the hits. These people have thick skin. It's whatever. These people can take the hit. But it's not supposed to be a dig on Zelensky at all. That's the point here. And a lot of people are not understanding this. When I point out that that Joe Biden just called his political rival, Vice President Trump, that's not calling him it's not calling him something bad. It's not calling him like something to actually belittle Trump. No, it's actively Joe Biden's brain failing him and you seeing the mental decline live on TV in front of your face. That's the problem here. And when people make the excuse of saying, well, Trump called all these other people names, yes, of course, Trump called other people's names. Trump called other people names in the past. But that's the thing here. Biden is not trying to call Trump a name or take a dig at Trump. He's trying to talk about Trump and actively failing at doing so. That's the major difference here. And if I have to explain this to you, you obviously do not have a basic understanding of how things work in the real world. If I go and I try to talk to my sister and I go to her and I'm like, oh, and I call her name out, it's one thing. Oh, and if I'm like, oh, you like eating or whatever, you're chubby or whatever, and then I say something stupid like that, that's a dig. But if I go and I call her a total different name, and then I act like everything's normal, that's completely different. It's not the same thing here. Taking a dig at somebody, like what Trump likes to do, like taking up nicknames for people like Little Ron or Meatball Ron. Ron DeSantis, his nickname for Ron DeSantis was Meatball Ron. That's one thing. That's not actively saying a different name. But then when Joe Biden says Vice President Trump, or President Putin, that's his brain actively failing him. And you can see it on live TV. And then he laughs in the reporter's face for asking why he needs to stop scheduling events after 8 p.m. because he's too tired, then claims that he needs to pace himself. So it just doesn't make any sense. How do you pace yourself when it is a fact that Biden has spent more time on a vacation than any other president in modern history? This is according to RNC research, and this is the clip here.
How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore.
Wait, so he's admitting that he made stupid mistakes. Okay, so now you're changing it from, oh, I had a gaffe. Oh, then it's just a mistake. I understand what I did and it's a mistake. Okay, so why are you continuing to make the mistakes today? In this big boy press conference that you just had, you're still making these stupid little mistakes like you say. So why are you not fixing the problem if there's quote-unquote stupid little mistakes? And why is it that when we asked the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, the president's worst front-hand woman that he could have ever picked to be representing him, why is it that when the media asks her questions about Biden's seniority and the fact that Joe Biden needs to go to bed earlier, why is it that she says, and John Kirby says, that there are people in charge that the president can look towards for information? Why is it that when the reporter asks John Kirby how people can find Joe Biden if it's after 8 p.m. and if there's an emergency and there's a bombing or whatever, John Kirby said that there's people that those immediate situations can go to instead of Joe Biden. So why is it that there's other people that these situations are going to and not Joe Biden? It's because Joe Biden is falling asleep here. And even if you were to look at the time that he was at Camp David actually preparing for the debate against former President Trump, you can see that they started the debate at 10. He took an afternoon nap, and then they ended it around 6 p.m. So then he could go to bed. And then he says that he's tired on top of that. So if you're constantly sleeping, constantly taking naps, what makes you think that you have the capability to continue as president? And it is a very fair question for the media to be asking you, that if you are having trouble, quote unquote, pacing yourself now, what makes you think from 2 to 4 years from now, you will not need to pace yourself? That is a completely fair question. And it just keeps going. Biden later said that if there was any signs of him slowing down, then it would be a sign that he should not be serving as president anymore. Just moments after he said that, he needed to pace himself and events earlier so then he could go to bed earlier. If I slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that you shouldn't be doing it. And there's no indication of that yet. None. Unable to read list. And of course, and then we can listen to this clip too. It's just thing after thing after thing.
Slow down, I can't get the job done. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet. None. Who I got here?
You can't even read the list.
Merrick, Pulaski Radio.
He can't even read the list that he has in front of him. Right after saying that. Oh my God. I'm laughing so I don't cry. This is the president of America. This is the president, guys. After war has broken out in the Middle East and Europe on his watch, Biden claimed that he was strong on foreign policy and that it was actually Trump that was not good on foreign policy. Even though war did not break out under Trump. It actually broke under Joe Biden. We can see the clip here.
Foreign policy has never been his strong point.
What do you mean foreign policy's never been his strong point? It doesn't even make any sense. There's 0 wars under Trump. The only president in modern history that there was actually 0 wars. Biden would not commit to taking a full neurological examination from independent experts before the election because he claimed that doctors have told him that he's, quote, good, which comes after Dr. Tom Pitts, a Democrat who is a quadruple board-certified neurologist based in New York, said during an NBC News interview this week that Biden, quote, definitely has Parkinson's disease. If I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurosurgeon, a neurologist, you can see that here.
We've had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams, and you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, 2 things. 1, I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recent as February. And they say I'm in good shape, okay? Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good.
You're good? Is that what you call good? At the end of his press conference, he said that he's fine with his delegates all showed up in the Democrat National Convention and decided to vote for someone else other than him, if that's the party's candidate and the party's nominee.
Your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I get overwhelming support. Overwhelming support. I forget how many votes I won in the primary. Overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says, we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
Even if that means they vote for someone else?
Sure. Look.
Sure. Look. Why are you whispering? It doesn't even make any sense. When was the primary for Democrats in 2024? It was actually May 14. He got 87% in May 14. Now, if you do not remember and do not have a good sense of timeline, you would remember and recall that May 14 is before June. In June is when Joe Biden had his disastrous debate between former President Trump and himself. So you would see that most of the people decided to abandon him after the debate. After June 28 or 26 or whenever the debate was, the Democrats decided that Joe Biden is not fit. And they all decided to stop endorsing him. And they decided to say, listen, we need somebody else. This old man is not going to do it for us because we are not going to win. Every single poll is now saying that Trump is projected to win the 2024 election. And that's a good thing on my end because I want Trump to win the election. So I say, Joe Biden, if you want to stay in the race, stay in the race. Do not listen to the Democrats at all. You need to do what you want to do. You want to do what you need to do to get the job done. And if you want to continue to quote unquote get the job done, and you want to continue to have your quote unquote big boy press conferences and your quote unquote stupid mistakes, then it's fine. You can go ahead and do that, and I will not get in the way of you whatsoever. But the people will decide in November. And the most of the people do not want you, Joe Biden, at all. And he actually makes another quote-unquote stupid mistake. This is according to the Daily Wire. Biden administration actively sanctions Israeli man for fighting Hezbollah and releases his address. Active IDF reservist Eved Shemod Shirid was surprised to find out that he was mistakenly confused for someone with the same exact name and was sanctioned. An Israeli man was, quote, very surprised to find out that he was sanctioned by the Biden administration on Thursday after he was confused for someone else with a similar name. Avid Shlomo Shirid, an active Israeli Defense Forces reservist serving on Israel's northern border, was sanctioned in President Joe Biden's latest batch of sanctions on Israeli citizens who have been accused of violence in Syria, Somalia, also known as the West Bank. The sanctions were meant to target a man named Shlomo Shirid and various other individuals and farms with which Eved Shlomo Shirid is not affiliated. Quote, while he is defending Israel, an American administration has imposed sanctions on him by mistake. David Ben Zion, the deputy head of Somalia regional consul who is helping Sumid get free of these sanctions, told the Daily Wire, quote, it's very unfortunate and especially disturbing. Every citizen of Israel should be afraid that his name is similar to someone else who will enter a, quote, blacklist, Ben Zion added. Matthew Miller, the United States State Department spokesperson, said that the Biden administration is, quote, deeply concerned about extremist violence and instability in the West Bank, which undermines Israel's own security. In addition to Shirid, Ezek Mar and Rit Ben Haim are also accused of being affiliated with Zov 9, a group that has come under fire for protesting and disturbing the distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza, while Israeli hostages are still being held captive. The 5 entities sanctioned include farms and outposts in Lavia, an anti-assimilation NGO that Miller accused of having members who have engaged in repeated acts of violence. The addresses of the sanctioned individuals were released by the United States Treasury Department. Iranians and Russians recently sanctioned have not previously had their addresses revealed. According to the Jewish News Syndicate, Maine, who runs a firm in the South Hebron Hills, has one of his residents survive an attempted lynching in June of 2022 by Palestinian rioters who beat him with rocks and clubs, according to the Jewish News Syndicate. Ben Zion said that he fears the sanctions will against the settlers living in outposts in only the first step before they target any Israelis living in Syria, Somalia, and the IDF soldiers serving there. The state of Israel is the state of law and order and manages to enforce its law on its own without needing any external assistance, Ben Zion said. Today, it is the sanctions on social activists. Tomorrow, it will sanction on reservists. And the day after that, on public figures and politicians. Israeli citizens and members of the Israeli Knesset have repeatedly condemned Biden sanctions for undermining its ally Israel's legal system. Of course, it's like if another country is going through American politics and American people and saying, that person's in trouble, that person's in trouble, this person's in trouble, this person's in trouble. Can you leave the country alone and let them sort through their own justice system without sanctioning and releasing the locations of people? It just doesn't even make any sense. And the United States is known for doing this because the United States would allow the media to leak the addresses of active people on the Supreme Court. So they do not care about the law and order in the United States for some strange reason during this administration. Usually they do, but during this time, I just don't believe that they do at all. That's because of Joe Biden's failure to actually be competent in the White House. The White House is no longer a competent figure and a competent executive branch. It is now a playhouse for an old man with senior functions in his brain no longer functioning like they once did nearly 3 years ago. So that's just a very sad situation. With that being said, we're going to be moving into the headlines of the week. Talking about the failure of Joe Biden, we have another illegal immigrant that has killed a American citizen. This time, it's a New Orleans woman. So, an illegal immigrant has now been charged in killing New Orleans woman. This is according to the Daily Wire. An illegal immigrant was among those charged of the killing of the 43-year-old woman in New Orleans, Louisiana. Joshua Avido Bonfisco, a 19-year-old illegal immigrant from Honduras, was one of the 3 individuals charged in the June 30th murder of Christy Tredonox, a tour guide in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Joshua Avia Bonfisco, I cannot pronounce that name, was also arrested in connection to the murder and charged with second-degree murder and attempted armed robbery. He is now being held on $1.1 million bond, as is Gerben Alaric, a 17-year-old, was charged with the same crimes as Avidia Bonfisco. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, confirmed that Avilia Bonfisco illegally entered the United States. The Venezuelan national has a number of interactions with law enforcement before his suspended involvement in the killing of Tredonox. Border Patrol released Avilios Bonfiscos into the country in May 2019 while he awaited his deportation hearing. Then, in October of 2023, he was arrested in Louisiana for theft. And that's when he should have been deported. But sadly, that's not what happened. Avilio Bonfisco was arrested again in February of 2024 for theft. So arrested twice for theft, as well as contributing to delinquency of juveniles in 3 Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office fugitive attachments. Kevin Nunes, the man accused of killing Tredonox, had an active warrant for his arrest at the time of the shooting and was wearing an ankle monitor that has been deactivated, which is just crazy. If you need a ankle monitor and you are an illegal immigrant, you should already get out of this country. You should be deported and arrested in your own country. Nunes, who is only 15 years old, they're not sending their best, just like how President Trump said, had previously been found of guilty in the juvenile court of 7 counts of aggravated assault. When would an American citizen go to China illegally and then be charged of 7 accounts of aggression and aggravated assault and still stay in that country? Nah. Illegal possession of a handgun and domestic battery abuse. So you illegally obtained a handgun where you're in a country illegally, have 6 counts of assault, aggravated assault, and then a domestic battery abuse. You have a whole entire list of crimes on your name, and you're only 15 years old. That's crazy. She brought as much joy to the entertainment to tourists who were visiting the city, said Brian Kane, a local business owner, said of Tredonox, who worked as a tour guide in the French Quarter. She was the life of the party and a mother hen, all in one. She took care of the people on her tour. She wanted people to see New Orleans in the best light. The killing of Tredonox is a part of the wider wave of violent crimes committed by illegal immigrants. Earlier this year in Texas, 12-year-old Jocelyn Nunegre was allegedly murdered by 2 illegal immigrants who entered the United States under the Biden administration, Joanne Jose Rangel Martinez, 21, and Franklin Jose Pena Ramos, 26. Both of them were from Venezuela and were charged with the murder. So all these people are from Venezuela, of course, and Joe Biden does not care whatsoever because of the fact that he wants all these people to stay, so then they can vote for him. That's what he's thinking, at least. The United States is not the only person and the only country to actually go through these terrible things. The United Kingdom is now facing its own house divide in the conservative rift on display that they have in their election system. So while Americans lift up their skies on July 4th to celebrate independence from the British Parliament, many United Kingdom politicians went upon realizing their own newfound independence, having lost their seats in the most disastrous election for conservatives in decades. Rishi Sunak's famous gamble, calling an early election despite trailing in the polls, did not pay off. 14 years of what they may regard as Tory failures on the key issues could not be solved with a few weeks of campaign propaganda. While inaction on illegal immigration played a central role in garnering functions among the base, social conservatives expressed bitter regret about so-called conservative government who have presided over a woke march through the institutions, a cultural war on the meaning of woman, a shutdown on free speech, and some of the most poisonous ideological school curriculums we've ever seen. With a new rival, Reform, offering a right-wing alternative on the political stage, the Tories hemorrhaged votes from the disapproved of conservatives, spitting the right of the political spectrum in handling victory to the Labour Party. The post-March analysis has been muddled. Some conservatives have understood the need to roll call on woke and return to genuine conservative principles. Many others insist the solution is to become even more liberally milquetoast. Former Energy Minister Lord Cullinan has pushed for a liberal mainstream center-right conservative party that's socially liberal but economically conservative. Former MP Rory Stewart joined the chorus with an urgent party appeal to move back to the center and reject the fantasies of the farthest right. The best way to win back your losses is, of course, to insult and shun them. The screen of the British right exposes a more universal friction in conservatism. Those who stand united or economic approach, a low tax, limited interference government, are spirited into conservative and progressive camps on social issues that hit society hardest. For social conservatives, strong family units and community structures and enhance human flourishing. Social progressives, on the other hand, forming a new, godless right, abhor the outdated nation of the nuclear family, instead preferring to champion individual freedoms in the United Kingdom, where the progressive side of Tories have resigned. The government took a hammer to the social institutions who have historically done the most to serve the vulnerable. The cost hasn't only been mounting socially, but economically too. So on all of these issues in church, marriage, parenthood, mental health, all of these things are now in decline in the United Kingdom because of the fact that the United Kingdom has now gone off the rails and elected progressives to their government. And they were going to find out that it's not going to be best in the long run to have progressives in your government, because now illegal immigration is going to take a stronghold, and now all of these leftist progressive policies are now going to take a stronghold over your country. And that is not a good thing for your country whatsoever, because of the fact that you do not want these people just running around. You do not want legal immigrants ruining your country. That's not a good thing. Moving on to the next article, we actually have an exclusive on the Daily Wire. Department of Interior hosts Pride event celebrating transvestite revolutionary. Biden's wokest agency celebrates activist founder of the street transvestite action revolutionaries. At the Biden administration's wokest agency, Pride Month is bleeding into July. Just this week, the United States Department of Interior hosted an event celebrating a radical transgender activist named Sylvia Rivera, the co-founder of a group called the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. The event, titled Pride Month Program, highlighting Sylvia Rivera, pioneer and civil rights advocate for the LGBTQ+ community. That is the biggest name I have ever saw. That is crazy. Took place on July 10th and sought to celebrate the life of the transgender activist. Quote, the Bureau of Trust Funds Administration will host the visual Pride Month program on the Sylvia Rivera Law Project. Sylvia Rivera, a Latina American drag queen, was a pioneer, trailblazer, civil rights activist for the LGBTQRSUVWXYZ community in the 1960s and 70s. An international agency newsletter obtained by the Daily Wire reads, quote, she was well known, okay, how do you know her pronouns? For participating in the Stonewall Uprising in 1969 in New York City, and co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, a group dedicated to helping homeless and young drag queens, gay youth, and trans women. The email from the federal agency went on to read. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to understand this. You're a drag queen that's homeless. You're gonna be helped out by this drag queen here, this transvestite. Okay, so how does this work exactly? Because if you're a homeless person, you don't really have access to a sink or a mirror. So what are you doing your makeup on the streets over here, and then you're fixing your wig on a little mirror that you have on the side of the road? Like, how's this working here? So you're a drag queen at night and you're a homeless person by day, or vice versa? You're a drag queen by day, homeless person by night? Like, how does this like full-time, half-time schedule work? Is this like you're just homeless and you don't have a home, but you're living in your car, so then you're doing your makeup in the car? Or are you just a drag queen just like undercover? Like, what's going on here? I just don't understand how this exactly works. A series of the Daily Wire investigations previously revealed that the Interior is perhaps the single furthest left agency in the federal government. Okay, so disband it, underfund it, not fund it. Get rid of this organization. What are they even doing? The Department of Interior? Whoa, we need help with curtains. We need to make sure that the carpet matches the drapes, okay? I don't care about the interior of the White House, the Department of Interior. Okay, get some forks and knives from Dollar Tree, and that's what you're going to be using as president. If you have the carpet not matching the drapes, it doesn't really matter. I don't care. I'm not going to go in the White House. It's just you, the president, living in the White House. So whatever, make the outside. We need the Department of Exterior to make the White House look good, and the Department of Interior can go and get underfunded, because I really don't care what's in the White House whatsoever. I don't care if you get stuff from the best bedding company or the worst bedding company. I'm not laying in the bed. I don't care. So that's just me, though. Moving into the next article, we actually have a Federalist article. We have would Kamala Harris be a better candidate than Joe Biden? Doubtful. I completely agree. Very doubtful. Very doubtful. If Joe Biden was pushed out of the presidential race by the elite Democrats, the most obvious replacement is Kamala Harris. Numerous pundits have noted that the vice president is already running ahead of Biden against Donald Trump, even before she had a chance to make her case. Though I'm not in the predictions racket. I've been around long enough to know that DC experts have no idea how the electorate is going to react to the candidate. History is strewn with sure things that and cannot miss prospects. Many voters in reasonable portions. Many others are driven by the institutional emotion, not that kind of hard nationalism experts tend to assign them. Which is to say that it's a mistake to assume Kamala's popularity is designated to increase after she makes her case to voters. In truth, the reverse is likely to happen. In 2011, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's favorability numbers hit a historic high of 66% and remained over 50% until the 2016 presidential campaign began. There is better than Harris numbers today. Those are better than Harris's numbers today. By September 2018, Clinton was at 36%. Even among Democrats, Clinton's favorability dropped 10 points from the start of the campaign until the end of the election. What happens when Kamala faces a large-scale, highly funded opposition campaign that launches relentless daily attacks on her? Many voters don't know much about Harris's record. Trump's negatives, on the other hand, are already baked into the polls. What is Kamala Harris going to say about former President Trump that Biden hasn't already? Once you accuse your opponent of being Hitler, there's not much space to go from there. I completely agree here. If you go off the deep end, then you're not going to go to the short end and try these little tactics. They're not going to work. If the most extreme case didn't work, accuse him of doing this or accuse him of doing that and this and that. You tried everything under the sun to attack Trump. Didn't work. What else are you going to try? You can't try anything else. Besides, what will Kamala Harris's case be for the president? Won't she be compelled to run on Biden's record? Sure, a change would shift the coverage away from Biden's fragility, but before the media begins writing revolutionist histories about the past 4 years, let's not forget the administration's policies were unpopular before everyone acknowledged the president's declining mental state. Of course, Biden was lagging behind Trump on issues that matter most to voters before the debate. And the most important non-economic issue for voters, according to Gallup, is immigration. The one remarkable task given to Harris by Biden was to stem the United States-Mexico border crisis. She was appointed for the job in March of 2021. By May of 2022, the United States has the highest monthly number of encounters at the border, more than 241,000. By December 2023, that number was more than 250,000. In a 2019 appearance on The View, candidate Harris argued that illegal immigration should be a civil enforcement issue, not a criminal one. So perhaps she was just keeping her promise. One supposes Harris could try to distance herself from Biden. Recall, though, that the driving reason Biden took the weak 2020 Democratic primary field was the perception of the moderation and decency. How will a hard left presidential candidate who didn't even finish her first term in the Senate help Democrats in competitive states? It wouldn't. An outside Democrat would be more effective in recalibrating the debate. Names like Gretchen Whitman, Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom are making the rounds, but Democrats are really trying to push out not only the president, but the first Black South Asian woman vice president in history. Seems risky. Yeah, of course, because everybody's going to attack whoever steps in that's a white male. But that's exactly who people want. I mean, it's not going to be a racist thing. It's that if you are most qualified for the job, then people would vote for you. And most of the people that are most qualified for the positions of presidency are the majority of Americans, and the majority of Americans are white males. So if we have a percentage of a population by being 60-70%, and then you say, well, the majority of these people that are qualified are going to be this, yes, because the majority of the population in America are white males. So if I mean, it's just common sense here. But the thing is, if Kamala Harris was actively good at her job and actively good at the act of politics, then it would be a total different story. But she's not. She's been the worst politician in modern history, failing every single step of the way, but then failing upwards, starting with the district attorney's office and then going up from there. So, and then going to Senate and then Congress and then the vice presidency, and then now you want to run for president. But even while she was running for president, she had to step down because nobody even liked her when she was running for president. So good luck running again. Under what? A failure of a presidency? Not going to work. Not going to work whatsoever. I do not believe that she has a chance in hell. Hell would have to freeze over for her to actually win the presidency, never mind actually win the primary and all of that. So with that being said, we're going to end off this episode here. If you did like this episode and you do want to see more, like and subscribe to me because I do post new episodes of my show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening, and I hope they have a great rest of your day. Bye.